What's up, and welcome back to the Talking Nutrition Podcast. We got Pia back for episode 121. How are you, Pia?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm actually watching the sun as I'm standing here recording, so that makes me happy because I haven't seen the sun. Okay, I've been on a little vacation. I saw the sun there, but to see the sun here in Norway, it's quite special.
It's great, right? I was thinking about this. I don't know how it is for you guys in the south, but where I live in the north, we always get this like fake spring. Which is right now, like, we all feel like, finally, some of the snow is gone and it's like sunny and it feels good, and there's already like seagulls now like making nests, and it gets you in that spring mode, and then you just get hit with like the worst snowstorm like April.
That's my biggest fear. I think that's more common in Tromsø than in here, maybe, but of course we're not fully out of the gates yet. So, but let's hope we are. I'm hoping,
Yeah.
and at least now we see daylight. It's bright in the morning and late in the afternoon. So yeah, I'm just vibing with it. I'm embracing it.
I love that. Yeah, me too. I'm loving it too. It's good for the walks. I've been outside quite a bit. I always try to do my calls anyway when I'm walking, so it's nice. It does feel good. How was your trip to sunny Spain, by the way?
It was super nice. Also, when I landed, I just felt right away how much needed it was to feel like the sunlight and wear a t-shirt and just be outside. So it was super nice. For those who was wondering, I spent a week in Gran Canaria just working and visiting a friend and colleague. So I came home with a lot of energy.
Great, good.
Highly recommended.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I definitely want to. I'm at a point where like I feel like I gotta go somewhere. Although I did recently go to Miami, and that was really nice.
Yeah, but you were there for like an hour. Also, you should have spent like a week there.
I know. I should have, because it ended up being crazy. But long story short, snowstorm in Tromsø. Our plane didn't even get here, so I couldn't leave. The whole thing got rebooked. For a little bit, it looked like I was not going to be able to go, and then eventually I got rebooked for the next day, which was great. But that meant that I got to Fort Lauderdale, because here's the thing too, I had like a 15-hour layover. I did have a hotel, but still, it's a long time. So the long layover, it took me almost like 25 hours to get there, I think. Arrived in Fort Lauderdale Thursday evening, basically like 9 p.m. And then I left that Monday morning at like 6 again, or 7. So it was a very short trip. It was great. It was awesome. It was like a fitness conference, very like functional health kind of, focused. Met a lot of good people, good networking, and it was awesome. I loved it. It was like right by the beach, palm trees and sunny, and it was really cool. But definitely very short. And you know what? I should have stayed longer because of the delay, I got refunded like almost my whole cost for the flights. And the reason I didn't stay that long, I was like, I don't want to spend another, I don't know, $150 per night or something, right? If it's not like a real vacation, I'd much rather kind of save that, go with my girlfriend. But I could have just gone for longer, I guess. I definitely will next time,
Yeah, you should. You should bring your girlfriend and make a vacation out of it as well. Combine work and some time off.
Yeah, definitely. Because we were talking about this off air, but like that's a nice thing about you and me, is that we actually get to, or if we want to, like we can work from anywhere. Now, of course, it sounds great to the listener. It's it's also not like we're lying on the beach with our laptop all the time. I definitely don't. I'm mostly at home, but like it is really nice. It gives you a lot of freedom, right? You can move around. You can still work. I was doing check-ins on the plane, for example. I was doing it via email, of course, not video like we usually do. But it still works, and that's actually really nice. It gives you a lot of freedom, so I do like that.
Yeah, the freedom is the biggest advantage, but also the biggest challenge for me, because I can work anytime, anywhere, and I mostly do as well. As it's hard for me to like put stuff away, but you can't have it all, and it's mostly like a really positive thing. But sometimes when I see like people working in, for example, kindergartens. like when they leave the kindergarten, the kids are not going to send them emails about the next day. And of course, there's some admin work and stuff as well. But like having a job where you can just close the gate and shut off your mind until you're at work the next day. Maybe it's boring for those of you that live your lives that way, but for me, some days that seems really nice. So yeah, there's always a part that wants what you can't have, and what you don't have, it seems greater than it is. So yeah, just remember to appreciate what you have as well.
Definitely. I like that you brought that up, because I think it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about today. So let's actually transition into that, because we want to talk about periodization. And so I'm going through a fat loss phase. We'll talk about this more in a bit, but right now I'm like, I really wish I had more food. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you're really starting to feel it?
Now I'm kind of struggling, to be honest with you. Like, not in a sense of like having a hard time sticking to it, but it's just like I really notice. You know what I mean? I will say this, workouts are actually going pretty good still. I'm actually, doing a bunch of cardio as well, a lot of steps. But the hunger, like it's definitely like up there,
Oof. Yeah, also we worked together, and our plan was to gain and then go into a cut, but I got pregnant during the gaining phase, so I haven't done the cut yet. But the hunger for me is like my biggest enemy, so I'm really like, I'm feeling your pain.
Yeah, but you know what it is, and this is something we'll talk about more as well today, but I will also say this, I've been cutting for a while, and now it's starting to hit. And I want everyone to listen, like, don't expect going into a fat loss phase and like the second day to be like crazy hungry and like have shitty energy levels, because you're not going to. And if that's the case, that's up here. That's in between the ears. Because you're not going to notice that quick, right? If so, which again is the case with a lot of strict diets, you're doing it like you're going way too low on calories, you're not prioritizing filling foods and those kind of things. So that's one thing I will say.
Can I ask you, like, what's your goal? Of course, your goal is to lose fat, but I can imagine that also you can lose fat for a long time without feeling the hunger, really just enjoying life. Maybe you're skipping like the chocolate in the weekends, but that's mostly that. And that's fine for people. But when it really gets like hard, maybe like where you're at now, you should really be like motivated and in tune with like why you're doing it. So what's like your motivation for doing this? Because you look awesome, you look fit. Like what's your thing?
I'm not motivated. Let me start with that one. I'm not.
You have discipline.
Yes, I do. Because of my why. So we'll talk about that in a sec, the why, which is of course your question. But I don't see that as not as motivation as in the traditional sense that most people will understand motivation as, if that makes sense, right? It's not that I feel like doing it. I don't. Because I'm very hungry right now, as we speak, And I do miss because like I said, the workouts are good, but I do miss that extra energy, right? Having a little bit more in the tank and really kind of like getting like a really solid workout in, I like food, I like big meals and, and especially the carbs going down and, having like fewer oats in my morning breakfast and like it's not fun and I'm definitely not motivated, but I will say this. So let's actually talk about the why I do it and what keeps me going is a few things. First of all, I believe in walking the walk as a nutrition coach. I think as coaches, PTs, whatever, we should set the example. And that's not in terms of you have to look shredded, right? It's cool if you want that, if that's a person's own goal, that is fine. And this is my opinion, right? But I do think that we should lead by example by doing the thing. That's why, you also shared your journey, which is awesome. And you still do with your training. Hey, I'm training, I'm pregnant. Look, like I'm still taking care of myself. I'm still getting my fitness in. You know what? Like you probably also don't always feel like working out, but you're still doing it. It's part of what you do. So I want to share it. First of all, I want to show people like, hey, I'm also doing this thing just like you. I also want to go through hard times because I mean, I am putting people through muscle gain and fat loss phases and those kind of things. So it's also a being able to relate because you've been there, right? Kind of thing. And it's also part of me pushing my body in a way to points where I haven't been yet. So I did my check-in yesterday. I told my coach, like, hey, look, I've never had this much muscle at this low body fat percentage, right? And it's not that I have to reach that goal. I don't. I have enough muscle, right? I'm lean enough. I could go to maintenance, be happy. But it's also a little bit about challenging yourself. And I think, to kind of wrap this one up, I think we should do hard things to show that our mind is in charge and not those little, you know, right? Not the cravings, not the hunger and those kind of things. This is not self-punishment or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But it's something that I truly believe in. For a lot of people, it's the ice bath stuff, you know? That's a very relatively easy thing to do. Like you jump in that cold water. It's something you inherently don't want to do. But because you do it anyway, it builds that resilience. It builds that character, and you can deal with uncomfortable situations more. Makes sense? And from here, right, I talked to my coach. This kind of goes into just investing in yourself long time. We had a call. I was like, hey, you know, let's do this for a year. Let's turn this into like a year-long project so that we have a lot of time, because I want to get lean and then build from there. Make sense?
It definitely makes sense. And I think it's nice to hear with your own words, because I think people from outside, when they follow a journey like that, they immediately jump to the conclusion like, oh, poor you have to punish yourself to feel a certain way. You don't have to do this to be good enough. Or at least that was the feedback I got from some people, because they're like transferring their opinion about doing something like that over to me. So I would say ish the same thing as you, as I've also done. It's about doing the hard things. It's about practicing what you preach. And of course, investigating how far can I go? How does it feel? So that when you talk to clients about it, you know, you've been there. You're not just telling them what to do. You've done it yourself. So, I'm supporting the journey, although I think you look awesome now, and you're going to look awesome in a month or two.
Thank you.
It's really not about the look either. It's just about, as you're saying, challenging yourself and seeing like what you can do. Yeah.
And you know what? There's also not even something wrong with wanting to look a certain way either. Going back to your point too, like people are allowed to have those opinions, of course. I will say this, in 2024, people love having an opinion about just about everything. And you don't have to have that opinion, right? You don't have to. You don't have to agree either. But if I see something, and trust me, like I have to remind myself about this all the time. When I see people walking around in the gym with a tripod, and you know, like people doing certain movements at the gym, and it looks kind of funny. And then of course sometimes you have that thought of it looks kind of funny, right? And you automatically think about those like the gym fail videos, whatever it is. But then again, it's like, well, I don't really have to have an opinion about that, right? That person either is maybe just beginning, or they just don't know how to do it. Or with the tripod stuff, I see a lot of kids doing it now, and they're teens and 20s. It's like, well, okay, yeah, they're young. I definitely did a lot of cringy stuff when I was a kid. I kind of get it, you know.
Are you talking about people walking around with the tripod to film themselves training?
Yes, in like a public gym.
Because I'm one of them.
Yeah, but
and you should be one of them
also,
as well.
That's also even one of the thoughts I get as well. Because sometimes, like, I do also think, like, okay, well, maybe they're just recording it to share their journey, and maybe it's content. But sometimes it's also like just very like, in the middle of a public gym. But anyway, like my point was like I don't have to have an opinion about that, right? I can have the thoughts, but that's okay. I see stuff online all the time, and there's like these battles going back and forth, and it's like, sure, there's a lot of shit out there, and we'll do a podcast about this too. But on the other hand, like when I see other coaches maybe say certain things that I don't fully agree with, or right, I'm also like, well, hey, they're just in their journey, and whether they want to do this or that, like actually doesn't really matter that much. So going back to the people commenting on your stuff, it's like, I do get it, sure, right? That's what people do, but you don't have to have that opinion. It's your journey.
Also, yeah, let people be people. And about the tripod, I cringe when I do it, when I like bring out the tripod. That's only when there's no people in the gym almost. I would rather like use my shoe for a tripod. That actually works very well. Or just putting it in super weird places so I don't have to like carry the tripod. But who cares? That's my thing. So I wanted to ask you about a question that I know that a lot of people are wondering, and it's maybe like something 50 to 80, 90% of the people in gyms want. You want to lose fat and gain muscle, preferably at the same time. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Is it possible? And we're also going to then talk about like periodization and how you can do it in a good way. But first of all, is it possible to like build muscle and lose fat at the same time?
Yes. At the same time, yes. Not at the same rate. So that, of course, it is a difference, right? There's a crazy sound outside. I don't know what that is, a car or something. Car alarm, maybe. Anyway, sorry, distraction. It's possible, but not to the extent most people will want it to look like, I feel like. I've built quite a bit of muscle in this fat loss phase, to be honest with you. And that's me, like I've done this for a long time, you know, it is possible. But I always tell people like it's not to be expected. There's a few exceptions here. When you start to make drastic changes to your nutrition in general and your training, especially if it's a combination of, hey, you're new to weightlifting or kind of new in terms of like you haven't done it much recently, or you have maybe just focused on cardio, whatever it is, like explosion in the tunnel. Shit. There's a lot going on outside. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but they're doing construction in the tunnel, which is like basically under where we live, and there's like dynamite going off sometimes.
Yeah, I'm hearing some kind of a beeping sound, but it's our training and like focusing on what's important. So we're just listening to you. It's no problem.
My bad. I'm just getting distracted. There's my curse. But okay, so it's gone. I can focus here. So fully focused. It is possible. When it comes to, you know, you being new to training, you start lifting weights, especially if that's combined with like now you're starting to actually eat enough, now you're starting to eat enough protein, you could actually see quite a bit of what's called body recomposition. That's a magic word people want to chase these days, right? It's body recomposition. It's possible it's not going to last that long, and over time it's going to become more and more and more difficult, to a point where it's going to go so slow that you're probably not going to stick to it long enough. And that's one downside to it. It's still going to be possible, and I still think so. But in most cases, you're going to be better off chasing those separate goals separately, because a calorie surplus, which is optimal, right? We're talking optimal here for muscle growth, and we're looking at fat loss. You know, like a deficit is, I mean, not even optimal, is required for fat loss. Those are opposites. So that's kind of like those conflicting goals we talk about in the article. We talked about this off air as well. I had to clear this with Pia real quick, because I don't fully like talking about steroids and stuff, but because I don't support it in terms of, right, people will listen to a podcast and think like, oh, this sounds kind of great, not knowing that it's going to mess up their hormones for life, right? There are people who really take it too far and now they're messed up. And that's not just muscle gain related, like it's your full, like all the systems in your body, right? So don't jump on those kind of things anyway, but that's also why I don't necessarily support it. Again, if people want to do it, that's great. But I never recommend anyone, obviously, right? That's not what we're here for. I want to support health. Okay. We do have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people with big followings who are on steroids. A lot of fitness influencers, a lot of models, right? A lot of the people who are really jacked, whether they share that or not, right? Some people are open about it. Cool, that's cool. But then even then, their followers might still not know. Other people lie about it, which is the only thing I do think is wrong. Like, it's cool to do it. If that's really what you want to do, fine. But then be honest about it, right? And of course, there are genetic freaks, let's call them, who are just lucky and they have the right genes, genetics. And yeah, you know, they do get jacked more than other people. And, you know, they can stay lean or whatever it is. But it is a very real thing, especially in, you know, Hollywood actors as well. People playing, like, you know, roles like Wolverine and action, you know, figures. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, you know. It's, again, it's not natural, you know.
But can I just ask you one thing? Because when I hear steroids, I think about like the Jack guy in some movie. Like, I always think about the guys. And what's new for me is that there's women as well doing it, and not just like Jack bodybuilders, but also like the Fitspo bikini body influencers. So you can use anabolic steroids to achieve that kind of physique as well. Have I understood it right?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not like very versed in that stuff. I know a lot of people who are. But yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah, let's not dive into that. We're not here to inspire someone. I just want to like mention it because as a woman, you think it's not something women do, but look at that girl. She looks amazing without even thinking about or considering the possibility that she's taken something. So that's why I'm just saying it.
A lot of them who look like really like they have a lot of muscle, like, you know, it's likely, right? I can't make those claims, but you can usually tell. And for example, testosterone, like, that's a hormone that also women have. It's also important for women, right? It's a balance, which is how men also have estrogen. But okay, let's continue, because we obviously want to do things naturally here. That's the goal. Is it possible? Yes. I've been in a fat loss phase. Give you a little bit of background. Like, last year, I took my training down to 3 times a week, very like maintenance level. I didn't really do a lot of bulking, cutting, whatever. I kind of chilled, you know. My fitness kind of went down a bit, let's say, because I want to focus on work. Now I'm fully like back on, you know, the train again, basically. And for me, going into this new program with my new coach, I did go from maybe 3 times a week, where I didn't really push and it wasn't very consistent, to 5 times a week. These are also sessions with high volume, 1.5, 2 hours sometimes, right? I did tell him like the 2 hours is a little bit long for me currently with my schedule, but, you know, but usually it's an hour and a half, let's call it. It's a big one already. It's a lot more volume. I've really been pushing way more, and that's a big one too. I think sometimes we think we're trying to, right, we're almost at our last rep, but what's really kind of training close to failure, a lot of people are not really getting there, including myself in the past, right? I've been pushing way more. Why is that? I have to coach. This is something people sometimes don't see, but it's like, because you are invested, because you are spending money, you have skin in the game, basically, right? Because of that, you do the work. And that's a big part of coaching that's actually not often talked about. It's like, you have to show up, obviously, because you are invested. So you do the program, right? You stick to your macros. I've been spot on with my stuff. Now, also, what else? I went from 200 to 240 grams of protein per day. Also there. That's a relatively big change. And through that, you can potentially achieve some additional body recomposition. Maybe something to try. Again, it's probably going to be best with a coach, but if you want to ramp it up, your protein intake, see if it makes a difference. And I've been at that 240, so it's been good, you know. And I do really see a difference because my weight hasn't gone down that much. I also just had like a 3-week plateau where I just stayed the same for 3 weeks in a row. This goes back to when people get impatient after 2 days of not seeing the scale going down. It's like, no, I hit a plateau. Like, no, you didn't. You're just impatient, right? You're just impatient. You're just too focused on the skill. Are you weighing your food? Are you tracking? If yes, okay, cool. Keep doing that for 3 weeks and then we'll talk, you know? I also, and this is my last point, added cardio. I always tell people like, hey, let's not do cardio necessarily for fat loss, but you do burn extra calories, right? Let's be honest. So it was a method of, hey, I'm hitting my nutrition, training 5 times a week, weightlifting for that muscle gain and muscle maintenance. I hit 10,000 steps per day. And now I'm also doing, right? And since last week, it's 5 times. I do 5 times 30 minutes low intensity cardio per week. It was 3, now it's 5. I'm also at the very end. Now, here's one thing I will say. You and me, we do fitness. This is what we do, you know? I'm still working when I do my cardio, right? I walk to the gym, which is my little quick break. Then when I'm on the treadmill, like I do my emails, I do my DMs and stuff, right? So I'm still working. Then I go back and continue work. So it's part of my work day. And I have to say that because when people hear this and it's like, okay, I got to do this cardio and this and this and this, it is a lot to keep up with. I'm able to do that currently, but it's also the privilege of having your own job, right? And being able to squeeze that in. Same for you. You could go downstairs, you get that workout in, you know, but it's part of what we do.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier. So if I'm understanding you correctly, like as a beginner or you're just starting, for example, a strength program, like my members in Sterkere, I have new ones coming in and all the information about nutrition can seem a bit like overwhelming. And it shouldn't be, especially when we know that you can do a lot of good stuff with just doing the things you just mentioned. So to like really take advantage of this possibility as a beginner to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, you can do your strength workouts and like really push almost to failure, like on, and not on every workout, but like really make sure that you're putting in the hard work when you're strength training, and also hit your protein requirements with your nutrition. Really be mindful about that. And also, of course, your nutrition in general, like eat good food. And also try to do movement, not necessarily cardio, but I think that both you and me could recommend like about-ish 10,000 steps a day. That's a good goal. And for some, that includes walking on a treadmill. For some, it includes a group class, or it can just be walking home from work or just walking at work, you know? But would you say that if you do that for example, like a period of 3 to 6 months, you should start with that before you consider anything more drastic?
It's a big it depends question. The only real answer is I can't say because I don't know the individual context. But I'll give some general answers. But this is one thing that's wrong on social media as well. And we talked about this off air. It's like there's a lot of things that are like, this is the way, you know, without taking in consideration like the actual individual, the person. But okay. I think with all the stuff that you just mentioned, I think if we do that consistently, and remember like in your article series 2, the very first one where we talk about building meals and stuff, or one of the first, when we talk about building meals, when we have those easy steps and you actually do that for most of your meals, most of your whole foods, quarter of your plate protein, those kind of things, even without tracking, I really think that if you're a beginner, you go, excuse me, if you're a beginner, you go into that and you do that consistently for a couple months, I can almost guarantee, because I can't because I'm not there, but I can almost guarantee that you will see a lot of good results. If you do your workouts, right, you hit a good amount of steps, but you also don't expect quick results and you just focus on the process more than anything. So yes, I do think you can make a big difference there with the basics. Now going into specific muscle gain and fat loss and doing it, let's call it optimally, that would require dedicated fat loss and muscle gain phases. This is where we need to look at the individual. Do they just want to look a little leaner and more toned, whatever you want to call it? Okay, cool. Do they want to lose 10, 20 kilos? That's a different story, right? Or maybe, hey, like they're kind of skinny, they actually have to put on some weight. Okay, 3 different journeys there, you know? So it's a big it depends question. In general, though, like I just said earlier, like you do want to have targeted muscle gain and fat loss phases if you want to get the optimal result. To where, hey, it is going to be worth it going into that. Now, when you're going to do that and for how long, I can't necessarily say. I will say this, it's likely a good idea to be at maintenance for a little bit. Just get consistent first. Just work on your habits and get that in a good place. Don't rush it. And then if you go into fat loss, maybe do, I don't know, let's call it like 2 on the very short end, maybe like 4 on the kind of maximum kind of end of months, right? So 2 to 4 months of fat loss. Maybe do a month of reverse dieting or a little bit longer if you're good with your tracking. If you want to do muscle gain, I don't really recommend much shorter than 3 or 4 months, like ideally 4 plus. It just depends. Where like muscle gain is going to take a lot of time. Fat loss, you could go a little faster, right? You are going to see more weight loss in a short period of time compared to the weight gain you want to see during muscle gain. But at least let's to put one number, I know this is very vague, to put one number on just about every phase, ideally like at least a full month. But that's on the very short end. Maybe 2, 3, 4 for most. And that's again on the very short end. As a maximum, let's maybe say 4, 5.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest one, both for me and the members that have read your articles, it's the maintenance part, like learning how much food you need, how much protein you need, and they really like getting used to that level of food and energy and setting a new normal, because you need that to be able to go into both the maintenance phase and like cutting phase, because you have to have like, if you're like really low on calories and that's how you live your life, you haven't got anything to like cut from because you're so low already. So yeah, the maintenance part was big for me. I think I've already shared that, and I'm seeing with my members, that's mostly women, how surprised they get at how little food they eat and how low they are on protein, which is not optimal when we want to build strength and muscle.
Yeah. Which in a way, of course, it's not like objectively, it's not like nice to be there, but in a way it's kind of good, because if you're coming from that and you go to eating enough and you then increase your protein and you start lifting weights, then you are likely to see a good amount of results in a short time, relatively short time. But just focus on those basics. And
yes,
it's the answer people don't want to hear,
Yeah, and when we started working together, I remember that in the first weeks, maybe months, when we upped my calories, we upped my carbs, that was when I felt my best, because I looked more athletic, my muscles were fuller. So I would have been happy just doing that for a while as well, because I don't know, it didn't take a lot of time before I felt better and looked better. And I think a lot of people have that good experience when they start following your guidelines that we also mentioned in the app. Because they need the extra fuel. So don't think that you have to go to the extremes with the different phases. If that sounds a bit like too much, a lot can happen if you just find your maintenance and dare to eat more food, at least for the people that I work with.
Yeah, definitely. Because maintenance is such an undervalued season, let's call it. And it's really just eating enough. But it's, when you hear people, they say, oh, it's my hormones or my metabolism's slow. It's not inherently slow. It's just adapted, right? And sure, your hormones might be out of whack, but why is that? Your hormones are not the cause. Like, it's the symptom, right? It's the effect of your lifestyle, of your habits, your nutrition. Guess what happens when you actually finally start to eat enough? When you bring that protein up and you just eat healthy, mostly whole foods, you lift your weights, like those kind of things, right? Because like I said, the metabolism adapts, but also on the way up. So I don't like using the word like fixing, but like you can reverse that, right? You can go back to where it's supposed to be. Now, depending on if you're really coming from chronic dieting, it might take a lot of steps and, months. Or if you're just coming from like a little bit below, you can jump back to there, but like just spend some time there. I know this is like, we want to talk about like muscle gain and fat loss, but I really think there's a lot of value in being there, like eating enough, doing that most of the time.
Yeah, I remember you reminded me of that when we worked together, because I've read somewhere that maintenance is like not a place you want to spend a lot of time, because nothing is happening. So I was like, I don't need to do that. But you reminded me of the importance of like making it your new normal. So if you're in the other end of the spectrum, maybe you've lost a lot of weight, it takes time to like get used to the fact that you're no longer on a diet. So you don't have that kind of drive and motivation, but you have to get used to like living your new normal. And that is probably, if you've done a big weight loss phase, it's less food than you're maybe used to. And if you're not really like paying attention to the maintenance, your new maintenance, I can imagine that it's really easy to like go back to your normal habits of like, I don't know, eating the bag of chips on the Saturday evening, not moving as much in your everyday life, just because that's how you normally operate. And when you're done with like the phase, you're going back to the old you. So that's why I think the maintenance part is really, really big, both after weight loss, but also like after gain, before cuts. Yeah, you know the drill. Yeah. Maintenance is like where we want to live our lives, and that's where we really have to strengthen our routines and habits.
Yeah, because it's one of those where we need to understand where the person is at in their lives, what kind of like life they live with their jobs, and they're busy, maybe they have kids, and I do understand, because the person you talked about, they're coming at it from, hey, what is optimal, like how do we build as much muscle as possible and stay as lean as possible. Yes, that is true. You go from a cut like right into gaining, right? Because they see it as time lost, because any second not spent in a calorie surplus, you're missing out on gains basically. Sure, that's true. If we're looking at, hey, absolutely just getting as jacked as possible. But what about like, let's call it like the everyday person, the normal person who does have the job, right? Should they really be always cutting, always bulking? Or should we just also kind of be like here, just eating enough, nourishing the body, just feeling good? Especially knowing that so many people, a lot of women especially, are coming from years, decades sometimes of dieting. Isn't it healthy, even just from a mindset standpoint, to say, hey, we're not dieting for a little while? Like, So important.
Agree.
Alrighty. What do you think? Want to wrap it up for today?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully we answered the question that I asked you when we started. And it's not a yes or no answer, of course, but our goal is that people just like understand these kind of topics better, so that they can take the best decisions for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's possible. Maybe don't expect it, right? It's just a nice bonus if it happens. It wasn't my goal to build muscle during this fat loss phase. I did. Hey, nice. It's a nice bonus. It also makes it okay that my weight loss has been going pretty slow, right? But then again, the focus is fat loss, and then after, the focus is building. In the beginning, though, just focus on maintenance. Like, get consistent first, and once you've proven yourself you can do that, like then start to look at those next phases,
Yeah, agreed.
Do you have any other updates coming up on your end?
Not really. Just doing my thing, coaching the people in Sterkere and Trent, and trying to get as good workouts in as I can. Happy about that. I'm just right now, I'm like in week 24-ish of my pregnancy, and every time I just manage to go and lift something heavy and hit my like activity goals during the day, I'm very satisfied.
Love that. Awesome. So Pia, stay healthy, stay active. I'll make sure to link your stuff in the show notes to our listener. Of course, we will be back. I'm sure Pia is going to be back sometime soon. We'll see when. But for now, I'll talk to you next episode.
Yeah.